Right, good morning, welcome back to the channel. Don't be confused by the sunshine, it's blowing a hoolie. This is winter golf at its finest, and if you're daft enough to get those sticks out during these months, then this video could be a great help. So here's the thing, it's winter golf and it's a great time to improve your swing, your technique, and learn a lot more about how to get the ball better around these kind of conditions. However, you also need to understand what those conditions are and what impact they have on your game. It's windy, it's wet, it's cold, and the greens are slow. So what are the solutions? Well, to start with, you need to adapt your game and you make sure and you're choosing the right clubs to make sure you've got the best chance of scoring well in these conditions. So in my golf bag today, I've got 5 golf clubs that I wouldn't be without during the... So in my golf bag today is 5 golf clubs that I wouldn't be without during winter conditions, and I'm going to pass all my knowledge, my expertise, my know-how, as little as it is, in helping you play better golf this winter. Right, we're going to kick things off from the tee shot. All important, get your game underway. So the choices are, we've got to select the right club first of all. We've got a couple of considerations. We've got a lot of wind, we've got wet fairways, we've got cold conditions. They all mean they're going to have an adverse effect on your ball, the ball flight, and ultimately how far it goes down fairway. My suggestion is this: you stick with driver, but you don't change your club, you change the way you tee the ball up. Now, some obvious things that I'm going to state in this video but sometimes get overlooked. Now, we would always consider driver something like that: tee it high, let it fly. And to be honest with you, the odd one downwind, yes, we can consider doing that. But I've got the wind into my back and off the left, and what I'm going to do is reduce the height of my tee peg to probably half what it would normally be. Now, it might make you a little bit nervous. You've got a driver in hand, it's teed up very different than what you would normally see. I'm also going to ask you to swing at 60–70% of your normal tempo. The harder you swing the club, the faster ball speeds, the higher launch, the higher spin. They're all going to work against you in these kind of conditions. So we're going to try and do the opposite. We're going to tee it down, which we hope launches the ball naturally lower, but we're also going to try and get the ball flight going lower from our swing tempo and speed, which we hope will reduce spin. I mean, the ball flight is lowered and hopefully give a chance at least of kicking in on a fairway that ordinarily would plug. That ball has still picked up plenty of height, more than enough. That wind is affecting it on a left to right ball flight, but we've hit it at, like I said, 75% at least. One tip I remember from a few years ago that we did on camera was the idea of trying to only hit your driver 150 yards down fairway. It's a great way of reducing tempo, and it does the opposite. In fact, you hit the ball longer than you've ever done. So my visualization there, I'm not worried about the tee height. I know I've got enough loft on my driver to cope. All I'm doing is trying to get it down there with a reduced tempo, a reduced swing, and hopefully we can dampen down that spin, launch it that bit lower, and give us a chance at getting down fairway. So that's tip number 1. Still go with driver, reduce the tempo, and tee it down. I also want to point out, in most instances when you tee that ball down, you hit driver, in my experience you'll always hit more of a cut shot, so make sure you make allowances. It's always going to have, in my experience at least anyway, a bit of a left to right ball flight. So we managed to get off the tee, we're on the fairway. That in itself is an absolute result. The wind is howling at my back, as you can see by my trousers. I've landed on a wet, muddy lie. And believe me, this is Holywell, and these are actually as dry as I'll get during the winter. But you know, you play it, you take your practice swing, you slap up a load of water, and the real concern is if you don't get that ball clean, then you can have some major issues, which will normally result in a fat shot. That tends to come from an iron. The width of the blade is doing you no favour in terms of that sole, and if you don't make perfect contact, then, like I said, it'll lead to a fat shot, which won't produce a good result. So what I suggest is this: choose something like a hybrid. A hybrid or a lofted fairway wood is always going to be in your favour. It's because of that width of sole that is going to slide through the turf, through that wet surface, and if you're not quite right, it'll make up for any issues in poor strike. So you'll get away with stuff. It'll basically allow you to take good shots, or better shots, than perhaps you sometimes deserve. And just look at that wind drifting that in from left to right. But we're up there, we've got a good contact, and we've got a chance of still saving a decent hole. So inevitably, because of wrong club selection, something I'll talk about a little bit later on, we're going to come up short. We're going to find ourselves in a situation like this where we've got a lot of ground to cover to get the ball to the flag. And this is not the time to be digging out those lofties wedges, those hero shots. There's a huge amount of risk attached, and that's because you've got to land the ball pretty much in the hole, because when it hits, it's just going to stop dead. My suggestion is this: you've got three options, in my opinion. That's how windy it is, that you can look to choose. It's also making my nose run. And I would suggest they all have a similar theme, and that's a width of sole. And, I suppose, not as much loft as you would choose. My first option in this situation is a hybrid. Hybrid wide sole, muddy little lie, again, going to scoot along the ground. Turf interaction is going to mean I'll get away with a bit. It's also going to get the ball running along the floor pretty much straight away, so we haven't got the impact of any wind that it might have. Second option is looking at an 8-iron. An 8-iron with a similar width sole, if you've got one, same kind of principle. Ball flight is going to be low. We're not looking to throw this ball up in the air. Get it on the deck as soon as you can and get it running out towards the hole. Now the third option, if you want a bit of loft and you prefer to see that in these kind of shots, then make sure you've got a wedge in the bag, something like the CBX wedges from Cleveland. They've got a super wide sole, and it's exactly the same principle of what I've just suggested from the hybrid. They're going to help with that turf interaction, they're going to help with those wet and muddy conditions, and perhaps give you a result when you haven't got it quite right. And as you can see from the three options, we've given ourselves a chance of at least of making up and down. So the next scenario, we've got ourselves on the green, we've got a fair bit to go to the hole. This is not about a time to worry about hole inputs, it's about two-putt territory. In the winter, the greens will be a little bit wet, a little bit slower, perhaps a little more grass on them than normal. And your main concern or problem is getting the ball close enough to the hole for that two-putt. And the tendency is in the winter, you will come up short more often than not from undercooking it. Now, my suggestion is this, and I've got to say, by the way, at this point, Hollywell are ruining this whole concept for me, because the greens are in incredibly good condition for the time of year, so I'm not actually struggling with any of those things, so thanks for messing my video up. But the principle is this: it's about the weight of the putter that you use. Now typically, a Scotty Cameron blade type putter will be around 320 grams. The putter I've got in my hand is just under 400 grams. Now that's a significant difference in weight between those two putters. And what it allows me to do is this: it allows me to concentrate still on tempo and a smooth swing. Whereas if I've got that lightweight putter, I've got to give this thing an almighty hoof to try and get that ball to the hole. Now I know that's a slight exaggeration, but many of you will know that in the winter what can often happen, if you're trying to get the ball to the hole by hitting it harder, your swing and your tempo tends to go all over the place, so it ruins the end result. What I would consider is looking at a mallet putter that's got a plenty more weight in it, and then your concentration is merely about, I thought I'd gone in, is merely about getting that ball to the hole, and you can still maintain your tempo and rhythm in your swing. And like I said, the only thing that put me off here was just how good the Hollywell greens were. And finally, I want to get back to that point about club choice, because all too often most golfers will come up short all time throughout the year, let alone during the winter. But I don't think we pay enough attention to the conditions when we consider the club choice when we want to execute a shot. The iron you've just watched me play is 2 clubs up on what I would normally. I've tried to keep the tempo down, I tried to flight it down a little bit, and even so the wind still managed to rise it, and we just about got there. The important message is this: whatever club you think it is, you probably add one more. So if it's an 8-iron, you might go to your 7. My suggestion is this: go one more again, and I'll bet you any money you start to hit more greens than you do ordinarily. The impact that the cold weather, the wind, has on your ball flight is significant. And don't forget, those greens are generally wet this time of year, which means the ball is going to land, it's going to stop. That's the end of its flight. So you need to carry it all the way to your target. You also need that flatter ball flight that the less lofted iron or club might provide. So all those things are going to work in your benefit, and you go back to the suggestion in the very first shot of the day, which was off the tee, about keeping spin down and lowering ball flight, all those things will impact on a positive result. That's my final piece of advice. I'm no expert in these conditions. I only pass on the little bits that I've learned along the way, and hopefully one or two of them you might be able to bring into your own game during this tough old period. Keep your game going, learn a little bit more about the game itself and how you can play different types of shots, flight the ball a little bit differently, because in the main summer season all those things will also aid you well. Right, I couldn't have picked a better day in many ways because it's blowing a blinking hoolie. I'm glad I'm finished. My bags just fell over, as has the camera, nearly. See you next week.